Good morning, Bovinians. Herdistas and other assorted speci of the West Sonoma County persuasion. All right, well, I think you guys can imagine what we're going to talk about is the disaster, also known as the election. Granted, it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster even if Clinton had been elected. You know, disaster in different ways because, I mean, if you listen to the show or you know anything about me, you know, we talk about how often have we talked about Maine, Arkansas on this show, right? I mean, that's like the default thing we go to if I don't have a guest or if I'm getting, you know, feeling a little tired or whatever, boom, pop on the stuff about the CIA and the Clintons or the Bushes and all that stuff. So obviously me of all people, you know, wasn't like in the Clinton camp or anything. But this is a real disaster. I mean, just the guy was endorsed by the Klan. Okay. People will say, well, he didn't accept the endorsement, but I mean, if your guy's endorsed by the Klan, what does that tell you? So, anyways, point is, you have a situation like this, you got to bring in you got to bring in the most effective people to help us deal with this. So that's why we got guest on today, Platonic Punk Anarchist, Astro-Reporter Willow. willowsweb.blogspot.com. Willow, you are on the air, my friend.
Hello, and my condolences to planet Earth, and to all the inhabitants of planet Earth at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I gotta say, I'm just playing around with the music here a little bit, but yeah, after the show today, I got to get back into the Virgo, doing some of this Virgo North Node stuff because I just was on the internet and it's a disaster. But you're gonna debrief us and give us the inside info on the astrological transits, what this
yeah.
correlates
You know,
to.
I'm going to help you guys get up and out of this because you know it doesn't need to be preying on your mind quite as extensively as it is.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, you've dealt with some pretty serious stuff in your life, so you're a good person to go to when it comes to dealing with toxins on a intergalactic level.
Exactly. Psychic, emotional, physical, hitting all the
financial, political.
Exactly.
What else?
Keep going.
The entire list. You are the subject matter expert on
no, not really, but I think, you know,
you kind of are.
You know, I understand what people are the grief people are feeling right now.
Yeah.
The horror people are feeling right now. But I also know that those emotions can really suck you in and take you down. And as Matt's mentioning, especially with the current transits, we have the south node of the moon in Pisces exactly conjunct Neptune, and Neptune is stationing direct in that exact conjunction to the south node of the moon. So there's a lot of psychic yuck that can really drag you down, sort of the collective malaise around this subject. And so I think it's important as we hurtle into the astrological Aquarian era to maintain self-preserving emotional detachment as far as the proceedings that are going on planet Earth. And so one of the things that is going on is that
I just have to run Sorry, I think I forgot to mention this at the top of the hour. You're listening to KOWS 107.3 FM Oxford. Okay, go on. Sorry about that.
No problem. One of the things is that I think people are getting too attached to the figureheads, and they're losing sight of the whole beast, the whole machine that is underway, and also falling into the divisions that are being intentionally created for us, which is race divisions, divisions along gender, divisions along class, divisions along, you know, any number of avenues. But I think when you look at the big picture, the threads that connect us are definitely stronger than, you know, the divisions that are being put in place to try to weaken the people. I think ultimately when you boil it down, people do want the same things. We don't want to go into World War III. We don't want to have constant bombing and warfare and misery. We want people to be able to have homes and clean water to drink and clean food to eat and clean air to breathe. The very basics, right? That aren't accessible, to us anymore in a lot of respects. So ultimately, we have to look at the whole machine, which is rotten. Okay, the whole machine is rotten. It doesn't matter who the figurehead is at the head of that machine. That machine is still rotten, violent, fascistic. Just nothing that a natural human being would want to be a part of. I think both candidates are sociopathic. Let's just let's just lay it out there. Both of them are bloodthirsty, dog eat dog, vicious. Both, I'm sure, I know Hillary Clinton has blood on her hands. I'm, certain Donald has some skeletons in his closet on that front as well. So, I think just taking a step back and understanding that it didn't ultimately matter which figurehead, and I'm not going to say it doesn't matter entirely, because as you say, this is a new level of hideous. This is a level of hideous where we can't pretend anymore, right? We can't pretend. And in a way, it's kind of good, because the beast was so hideous for so long. It always has been. But I think if you have a more sort of establishment candidate, one who's supposed to be kind of the kinder, gentler candidate because she's a woman, if you have that candidate at the head, it's easier to turn a blind eye to what's really going on. I think the scenario right now we're looking with the ushering out of the Obama administration is a perfect example of the blinders that people get related to certain presidents that are considered those kinder, gentler presidents. I mean, when you look at what was going on while Obama was in office, at one point the United States was bombing 6 different countries while Obama was at the helm. Just constant slaughter for strategic interests, for oil interests, for gas interests, for political interests, for no, there's no, I don't think there's ever any real legitimate reason for doing what's being done. You see 42 million Americans surviving on food stamps. I mean, that number just staggers me, and it has for a number of years, and there's been, it's only gotten worse. So, there are people there's a massive homelessness epidemic, and it's not just your standard people that you would consider homeless people. It's people living in their cars, people living in tents, there are tent cities popping up all over. In every major urban area, there's a tent city popping up. We're in the second Great Depression, an orchestrated second Great Depression, and the astrology really backs that up. So, to look at Obama as if race relations are miserable right now, with a black president at the helm, and this was supposed to be the great healing balm, right? It was this black president in office, and it just goes back to the understanding that the trajectory has already been set. The presidents really are just middle managers. They're just the public face of the beast, okay? And you lop one head off, and another head grows back, or 3 more grow back, whatever. It's not a matter of it's the white cats versus the black cats. There's an analogy that was made by Tommy Douglas, who was a political figure in Canada and considered the father of Medicare in Canada. And he said, it doesn't matter whether the white cats or the black cats rule most lands. They still don't have the mice's interests at heart. It's a whole different ball game. So anyway, that's That's what I would suggest to people, is to just take a step back from the black versus white, Democrat versus Republican, male versus female thing for a second, and just understand that the whole machine is illegitimate. The whole machine is, violent and against ultimately what what the people's interests are, what human beings' interests are.
Yeah, I mean, if Clinton had won, even though I know what her agenda is, I've studied it extensively, and actually a lot of the things that have given rise, that have energized the Trump base, got their start during the Clinton years, like NAFTA, and private prison stocks just soared the other day once he was elected.
Mm-hmm.
Well, private prisons, they've existed for a long time, but it was during the 90s under the Clinton administration that private prisons really got their sea legs under them. So, however, because Trump is as you said, the more hidden, possibly the more hideous face of the global fascist police state. Like, if Clinton had won, even though I know all of this stuff that I just mentioned, I probably would not have prompted to email you and be like, "Hey, Willow, we got to get you on the show."
Oh, so, it's terrifying. I mean, it's literally terrifying that this man has this much power and this many resources, and has his finger on the nuke button. Like, this is absolutely terrifying. To me, he's a madman. I mean, his narcissism has gone to a level of straight up insanity, and he's
appointing people to advise him who are like equally crazy. So it's not like he's crazy. Like, at least if he had the Bush crime family around him, I mean, this is how bad things have gotten. The Bush crime family wanted to keep things going for their own benefits. Like, I didn't actually ever think Bush was going to, like, nuke everything, because if he nuked everything, then Dick Cheney wouldn't be able to make money from Halliburton.
Exactly. You can't rebuild in a nuclear waste zone.
Yeah, you can't drill for oil if it's a complete wasteland. So, like, Dick Cheney, as criminal as he was going to make sure that Bush didn't do that, because that would have messed up the profits for Halliburton. But with these folks in power, they actually, like, there's that apocalyptic wing is now in power, where they actually think that, like, nuking something would bump them up on the status ladder.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah. No, like, no qualms about letting off nuclear energy, and it's, believe me, the horror that is felt by, the majority of Americans right now, I share it.
Yeah.
But again, it's just the matter of, this is just making the beast more transparent, because this is what it really is. It is global fascism, and that is what, I mean, I don't know how you can justify slaughtering like millions. Let's just say it's millions of people who've been slaughtered, since the 90s, since the Bush Senior got in and started the Gulf, the focus on bombing the crap out of the Gulf and basically taking over those areas.
The sanctions during the 90s, during the Clinton years, the sanctions on Iraq are estimated to have, I think that was 500,000 Iraqis. And then during the Bush years, I think it was 1 out of 12. Iraq, I think they attributed 2 million excess deaths to the Iraq invasion. That doesn't mean, I know you know this, but for the folks listening, doesn't mean U.S. troops or NATO troops or Blackwater contractors or whatever killed 2 million Iraqis. It means that it introduced such chaos that there were 2 million excess deaths. Well, it's in a country of only 24 million people. That means 1 out of 12 people. That would be like in the U.S. if a country invaded us and 40 million people died over the course of 8 years, mathematically.
And then left like 4 million orphans with no parents, and left a depleted uranium toxicity level that is making it so that people cannot even procreate because their offspring are so...
That's because, you know this, but again, for people listening, there's all this depleted uranium in Iraq that will not go away for 1 billion years. And so they can't even really have kids now, But
in certain areas.
Yeah, and
it's also the dust, so it's actually circulating throughout the entire planet because it's radioactive dust that is then picked up by the air currents and moved around by water and whatever else.
Yeah. Now
it's also affecting. Sorry, I should also say it's affecting NATO soldiers as well. Depleted uranium is considered a primary one of the factors in Gulf War syndrome, which affects 250,000 U.S. soldiers, and the children, the offspring of many of the soldiers who fought in the Gulf, are also having birth defects related to the radiation exposure.
Right. Now, the Uranus-Pluto years, we
Yes.
are in the aftermath of those. Are there any correlations between the aftermath of this current Uranus-Pluto square, or it's not current anymore, but what we are in the aftermath of, and say the 1930s?
Why, yes, Matt. In fact, there are. So we are actually just barely, out of the. We're still in this square series, probably until Uranus leaves Aries. But yeah, the exact square series ended in 2015. It was between 7 times between 2012 and 2015. Uranus in Aries exactly squared Pluto in Capricorn, and the last time that we saw a series between these two bodies was between 1932 and 1934, which of course was the first Great Depression. The rise, it coincided with the rise of the Nazi Party and the lead up into World War II. So where we are historically is about early 1936, let's say. So again, just sort of the popular support of Hitler and the Nazis, right? Because they actually, ran on a legitimate platform. They did things for the people. They had support, from people who wanted regime change. So, can you see the similarities? And basically, we have a situation where the conditions have been created to mimic the conditions that we were experiencing then. So yes, we're now coming out of the exact square series. So we're right in the thick of the rise of the Nazi Party. So I would say the rise of just basically the mask being ripped off global fascism as it is now with the esteemed candidate in presidential office.
Cheetos Hitler, as you put it.
Cheeto Hitler.
Cheetos
Yeah,
Hitler.
thank you for whoever created that term, because it created some psychic healing on my part, and I'm sure many others. But just to go back to the idea that the trajectory is already set, the war, particularly the war trajectory, is already set. So we're talking about Uranus, and Uranus is a planet. Well, for one thing, Uranus is a planet related to uranium, so nuclear warfare. It's related to technology, so new technologies in warfare. It's related to sudden things and surprises, and in Aries, surprise attacks, right? And basically, what has gone on is the past 2 Uranus ingresses. So the past 2 times that Uranus moved into a new sign, which happens about every 7 or 8 years, there was a major war offensive, basically, initiated by the United States. So in 2003, Uranus entered Pisces for the first time. Pisces is a sign we would relate to oil. So there were surprise attacks related to securing of oil. And that was, of course, bringing shock and awe, Baby Bush's term, to the Iraqi people. After 9/11, despite the fact that there were no connections between what happened to the World Trade Towers, World Trade Centers, and Iraqis, but they had to go in there and get that evil Saddam Hussein, who was once a U.S. ally, but then once he invaded Kuwait for the oil interests, all of a sudden became the worst villain known to man. So in 2003, Uranus entered Pisces right around March equinox, which is a very potent time astrologically as well, as you know, Matt, because it is basically the birth point of the new year. It's considered a point of where you charge forward, right? And you start something new and you charge into new trajectory. There's definitely a war element to Aries, right? So March 2003 was the planned attack on Iraq with, again, very tenuous reasons for going into that. Absolute massacre and slaughter of the people. Left a depleted uranium toxicity level that will be causing birth defects and early deaths and health problems for centuries, if not millennia at this point. 8 years later, almost exactly 8 years later, Uranus moves into Aries, so moves into a new sign and crosses that equinox point in March 2011, and that was the planned attack against Libya to try to get rid of evil Gaddafi, right? Another villain that the United States has to go in and pull out of there. And coincidentally, also sitting on some of the biggest oil reserves in the area is Libya. So second war attack was planned then, and guess who was instrumental in the entire operation? That's right, the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. So she was, a lot of people I saw were sort of looking to her as like the anti-war candidate, and I was thinking, whoa, what? Are you kidding me? Like, she's as pro-war as they come, guys. Anyway, so we're looking at these March equinoxes when Uranus is moving into another sign as far as planned war attacks, and we are actually coming into yet another one of those in March 2019 when Uranus will be moving back into Taurus. It moves into Taurus, and then it'll retrograde back out into late Aries, and then it'll move into Taurus for good in March 2019. And so if we're looking at this post-Uranus Pluto square series, theme, 2019 would basically take us out right up to about 1939.
Yeah. Also, that's when Uranus is Taurus. That was when the Great Depression. I think I'd have to go back and look. It might have hit in Uranus and Aries, and then it got to its depths in Uranus and Taurus. That was also when we got things like Social Security, FDIC, some of these things that are actually, I would say, are good things.
Yeah. Like there's innovation in money and physical resources and things that's required because of that. Absolutely.
For somebody like yourself, an Aquarian-minded person who's from a farming and ranching family, Uranus and Taurus might actually be positive.
I'm really hoping that it coincides with like people taking back control of their food and of agriculture, and also I'm hoping of technological advances that make it easier for people to farm and easier for people to handle the physical work, because it is it's grueling to kind of grow your own vegetables and grow your own fruits and grow everything and process it all. And so I'm hoping there's some of those kind of Aquarian DIY innovations there with, and maybe growing indoors, growing underground, who knows, whatever we have to do, and hopefully coinciding with off the grid energy sources like self-contained renewable energy sources becoming much more accessible and DIY for people as well. So I think that's what we need desperately.
Yeah.
I mean, the housing crisis is just, and I mean, you barely hear anything about it, but it's just sickening. It's absolutely, it's
here
horrifying.
In this area, in Northern California, there's even people working at the big tech companies who are technically homeless.
Oh, yeah.
People think, well, how's that possible? Like, if you're a 26-year-old hotshot making $80K a year at Google or whatever, how could you be homeless? Yeah. Well, the rents in San Francisco are like $3,500 a month for a one-bedroom. So sure,
and then add like a student loan payment on, maybe they've got like $60K in student loans. Well, that doesn't take very long, and then a car payment maybe, or you're buying a bus to live in or something, whatever.
Well, one of these tech companies, I don't remember which one, but one of them, they had actually set up trailers in their parking lot so their workers could have a place to live. But it was like one of these I don't want to say which one because I don't remember exactly which one, but it was like a major name that people would know, and that's what they it's like even the hot shots at these companies can't find decent living. It's
I mean, what chance does someone living on minimum wage have?
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
And I mean, there are still those people in San Francisco who are making minimum wage or close to it.
Yeah.
You know, just like there are everywhere.
So you were of course poisoned by Cipro back in '09, and have managed to recover significantly. Okay, and it's not a complete 100% correlation getting poisoned by Cipro and what people are dealing with now, but I would hazard a guess that many of the things that you did to recover, the hands-on type stuff that you did to recover from that, would be very useful for people to know in terms of recovering from the psychic shock that they're going through right now.
You know, it could be. It could be true. You know, I think we want to look at that Virgo North Node right now. And the Virgo North Node is all about purifying things, eliminating non-essentials, moderation, and also... totally
like
lost
healthy living, like basic healthy self-care.
Yeah, exactly. Filtration. Sorry, that's what I was. What I was. So filtration, so that the other areas of your life don't become overloaded and overwhelmed. And I think right now people, the biggest thing people can do is limit their mainstream media time. I think so. It's the mental channels that with Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is the mind and communication. And we're in this period of like constant communication, which can get extremely toxic when everyone's always connected, always looking at their devices, always looking at their computers, always knowing what's up. And you can really get sucked into, honestly, the media propaganda machine and just the mind control, which is it forces you to look here and think about this and, you know, don't deal with anything else that's going on in life, or don't have any balancing kind of things to think about. So I would say limiting or eliminating mainstream media contact, limiting or eliminating for a period of time your social media, your computer time, your cell phone time, your tablet time, whatever. But then the other thing that I think people can do is really take care of themselves, take care of their physical bodies. So Virgo is about paring down. And one of the things when we're psychically overwhelmed, like the South Node in Pisces can be doing right now, especially with Neptune direct, and when we're sort of psychically flooded with this, not great scenario. Like, here we go. That's understatement of the century, but this not great situation that we're dealing with collectively. I think it can really start to take you down. So just basically cutting out the things that you might be using to buffer yourself. So stimulants like coffee or sugar, junk food, alcohol, excess, anything that you're doing, just kind of escape it all. So excess shopping or excess gambling or excess sex or, anything that you're sort of using to try to like transport yourself up and out of this. Because ultimately, what goes up must come down. So I think it's wiser at this juncture just to deal with things head on and to actually put it in perspective. Like I'm saying, right? The beast was this heinous all along. It's just that we can see it now, right? It's right out in our faces now. We're not going to be able to hide. We're in some collectively terrifying times, but like when weren't we, kind of thing. Like it was just kind of a slow, gradual build up until this point, and now we've gotten this sort of shocking moment where we can't really deny, right? We can't pretend like we can pretend that Obama was a good president and was good for the people of the U.S. And good for the people of the world. Period. We can't pretend that we can't pretend that things are right and that things haven't gone way off the rails. But I mean, they went off the rails long before now. is basically what I think people need to understand, and we need to be looking at the illegitimacy of the whole thing. So, in other words, just don't get too sucked into it. Don't get sucked into. Trump really brings the worst out in everybody. It seems like people are just at each other's throats. Just the battles and these kind of like flickers of hatred, right? Which with people believing different things. But again, those divisions are being created by this toxic political machine, and they don't necessarily even they're not necessarily even really there.
Yeah.
So I think just keeping perspective is really important, and understanding that we're ultimately still okay, right? Because there are ultimately a lot of good, wonderful, loving people on this planet who want to do the right thing and don't want to see violence and hatred and people suffering and people miserable. So just don't lose sight of the good, just because the media channels and the psychic channels are being flooded with all of this crap. Intentionally, I will say, as well.
And I think also with what you were saying about filtration and health and physical health, given how hideous everything, given that it's now obvious how hideous everything is, or at least the political system is, we're going to need to be healthy and as healthy as possible to deal with it. The healthier we
Absolutely.
are, the more we're capable of handling whatever is going to be happening.
Absolutely. So, cook good whole foods, get rid of the processed foods, cook good meals for yourself, shut the TV off, shut the media off, keep enjoying life, keep living life, because, none of us knows how long we are here, on this planet at this juncture, especially under the current conditions. So just enjoy what there is to enjoy. Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So thank you so much for being on.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
And
talk about this.
Yeah, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
They could get a hold of me at the blog, which is willowsweb.blogspot.com. I have my contact info there. I'm also on Twitter, so they can check out Willow's Web on Twitter. And those would be the ways.
All right, great. Thank you so much, and I will be in touch.
Thanks very much,
All right,
Matt.
wait, hold on. One quick thing.
Yes. Come on.
Best thing about